Thank you all for joining us. This is our second CBA Live, we're calling them. So we're going to go once a month on the first Friday of each month and just kind of give you updates on this legislation that's going through, answer questions, and just try to be here for you as, especially for those of you who are students right now kind of going through this and have some decisions to make as it gets closer to your graduation and when you're going to be taken to the exam and applying, all of that good things. So my name is David Hempill. I'm the Information and Planning Officer, so in charge of all the outreach here at the California Board of Accountancy. I would like to introduce you to Michelle Center. She is our Chief of Licensing. So she's got a lot going on with this, has done a lot of the hard work and the heavy lifting behind the scenes. And she is, no one knows more about this than her. So she is going to help us out answering a lot of these questions. Then I've got our outreach coordinator, Mick, who's going to be kind of hovering behind the scenes and making sure everything goes well. So again, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate that. And for those of you who provided questions earlier. So for those of you just jumping on, we have quite a few questions that we got already when you registered. So thank you for those. We'll answer those and then we'll open it up to any further questions because you may have, more questions may pop into your head as we're going through all of this. I wanted to start off by letting you know of something kind of breaking news from just this week. If you've been following along, we've said that there are some things that are happening in the legislation. There's some things that will be kind of manipulated through regulations later, and that not everything is 100%. And so this is a change that did happen just this week. An amendment was made to our bill, Assembly Bill 1175. And so the requirements for the licensure, even if the bill does pass this year, which we hope it does, the bill would go into effect on January 1st, 2026. But the licensure requirements are not going to go into effect until January 1, 2027. Now, we were originally saying July 1st, 2026. We thought there would be a 6-month window. It's actually going to be a 12-month window. So if all of this does pass and like we're hoping will go into effect, that date is now January 1, 2027. So make sure you have that in your brain as you're kind of determining whether you're going to apply through the current rules, which even if the new rules go into effect, the current rules are going to stay through 2028. December 31st, 2028 will be the last day that you can apply with the current rules with the 150, right, total unit requirement. What the new rules are, just to make sure you know what is in this assembly bill and what would be changing. So the good news is we're hoping that they're a little more simple to understand now, a little more streamlined. So the education is now simply a bachelor's degree or higher with an accounting concentration of courses. That accounting concentration of courses is still set to be defined in regulations, which will happen later. As of right now, the board has talked about it, and it could be, not 100%, but it could be 24 units in accounting, 24 units in business-related subjects, which could also be extra accounting units, and then 3 units of accounting ethics. Those are the educational requirements that will be both for licensure and for examination. So that's another way that these new rules will make things more simple. Because as you know, currently you have a set of requirements just for the exam, and then there are further educational requirements for license. That's not how it's going to be should this pass. So that's what the accounting concentration of courses will be. So the education requirement, bachelor's degree in anything, which is currently how it is, bachelor's degree plus that accounting concentration. The new experience requirement will now be 2 years of general accounting experience. Currently is just 1, so 2 years of general accounting experience. We'll talk a little bit later about some possibilities of things that could reduce that, but that's basically it, the 2 years of general. The attest, the 500 hours of attest is not going to change. That will still be in there. So in order to get the authority to sign the reports on attest engagements, you need that 500 hours. And then, of course, the bedrock, the CPA exam. You have to pass the CPA exam. That nothing is changing as far as that in your requirements. Okay, so that is how things are going to go, assuming the bill passes and all of that. So we can, again, like I said, if you have questions about any of this, feel free to ask. We'll do that in the Q&A feature. Now, I want to make sure you know where that is. So in the lower right-hand corner, you should see 3 dots. If you don't already see Q&A down there, hit the 3 dots and the Q&A should pop up. You might already see the Q&A down there in the lower right-hand corner. But anyway, that's how you're going to ask us questions as we go through. All right, but we're going to start off by just taking the questions that we were given through your registration. So again, thank you for doing that. So let's start off with one that was asked by Tracy. So Tracy asked, what do the changes mean for people who have a bachelor's degree in something other than accounting? All right, so now the next voice you will hear will be that of Michelle Center. Michelle.
Okay, all right, Tracy. I hope this is the Tracy I saw in the participant list. But Tracy, sounds like you have your bachelor's degree. It's in something else that's not accounting, which is perfectly fine. But that means you've met one of the 2 requirements that David just mentioned, right? He said there are 2 educational requirements. The educational requirements are a bachelor's degree and then a concentration of accounting courses. So you've met one of those 2 things. So the new licensure requirements would add some flexibility in how you could go about satisfying that accounting concentration. Especially for students like you that maybe receive their degree in something other than accounting, these might be of particular interest. So for example, you could choose to earn a master's degree in accounting. If you did that, those master's degrees you'd want to check, but hopefully they meet that accounting concentration of courses. But also it has an additional advantage, which would take that experience requirement from 2 years to 1 if you decided to go that route. Another thing you could choose to do is you could earn a board recognized accounting certificate, and that would reduce the experience requirement by most likely 6 months. So the board will be discussing those certificate requirements here in 2-3 weeks, David, at our next board meeting. So at that time, they'll give us some advice. The advice will be about things like who might those certificates be issued by, maybe community colleges, maybe university extension programs. So those are things the board will be discussing here soon. Or just like now, you could just go take the additional courses that you need to fulfill that accounting concentration. You could do that at a university or you could do that at a community college.
Right. And again, we'll know for sure what that accounting concentration will be, probably not until early next year, right? Is that probably about the timeline?
Yeah, we are working as quickly as we can. We're actually working on that at the same time as the bill is going through the process because we know, particularly our students, really want to know what these requirements are. So we are doing the work at the same time to try and get that out there quickly.
Yeah, we're getting the news out as quickly as we can. All right, so let's move on to a question from Valeria. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Says, if a reduction in credits required to sit for the exam is realized, when can we expect the changes to roll out?
Okay, well, let's clarify. There would be no reduction in credits to sit for the exam. In fact, there's likely going to be an increase in the credits to sit for the exam, and that increase would be those 3 units in ethics that you mentioned. And remember, the goal is to have the exam and the licensure education requirements to be the same. So this has a slight increase to those requirements to sit for the exam, but then the requirements for licensure are essentially reduced, assuming the regulations fit within the guidelines that we've gotten so far for the board. So remember that change would take effect January 1, 2027. So you need to think about when you would be sitting for that exam to know whether or not you have an additional unit requirement. You have some time before these things go into effect.
Yeah. So 2027 is the start date. There will be 2 years where you can essentially apply through the current rules or the new rules. So 2027 and 2028 you'll have both options. Then once 2029 hits, it's going to be all the new rules again, assuming this goes through. All right, so we have Ching Li says, for licensure applicants, I think I know who this is, for licensure applicants with 150 semester units, is the working experience 1 year or 2 years after AB 1175 is passed?
Okay, so if you've met the current requirements, which includes 150 units, as well as course requirements. So if you've met all those current requirements CBA have right now, you can still apply, just like David just said, under those current requirements until the end of 2028. And that would mean an experience requirement of only 1 year.
Yeah. And after it's passed, then the 2 years is an option too, with the new rules. Yep. All right. Xavier says, and I'm feeling some exasperation in this question, so I will ask it as such. Will the 150 unit requirement ever go away? Am I reading that right, Xavier?
I think that is probably exactly how he phrased that in that question. So if AB 1175 passes, then yes, the 150 total unit requirement will no longer exist. I think you will like that answer, given the way we interpreted the question. The education requirements going forward are meant to be simple, and they include both a bachelor's degree that does not have a unit requirement attached to it, and that accounting concentration of courses.
Yep. So that's a major change. That's, one of the big parts of this legislation. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that answer, Xavier. All right. Jacqueline says, we love this question, Jacqueline. Is there anything we can do to show support for this bill and to help it pass?
Well, the bill is currently going through the legislative process right now. And so you cannot, there's no need to contact the board. We already did our part. And so the legislature is now doing its part. And so far, we have not received or seen much opposition in terms of the bill.
Yep. So there you go. So, if you'd like, feel free to reach out to your local assembly member, as the vote will happen probably this month on the floor, and that'll be the first step. And it pushes to
maybe next week
Senate and works it through. Yeah, could be as soon as Monday. We don't really know when they'll actually decide to vote on it. But yeah, so it's exciting. And like Michelle said, no opposition at this point, which is good news. So that all bodes well. So thank you for that, Jacqueline. Katie says, I have completed one exam. So she's giving us kind of her scenario. So I kind of like walking through these scenarios. I've completed one exam section and will take 2 more by the end of the year. But I am 4 units short for licensure. So what do I need to know?
Well, it sounds like Katie has maybe 156 units right now. And it sounds like she will probably complete the CPA exam in 2026, right? So let's assume that, Katie. So decisions regarding what plan you want to meet in terms of the current requirements or whether or not you want to wait for the new requirements to go into effect, that's really an individual decision. But what I can do is I can identify a couple things that you might want to consider when you make that decision for yourself. For one, how much supervised experience will you have when you pass that CPA exam? Will you be done gaining your experience, or do you need to continue on to do that? If you're close to 150 units and you choose to get your 4 units that you still are outstanding, you would only need that 1 year of experience, right? So you might want to go ahead and take that route and take those 4 units and have that 1 year of experience. But if you have 2 years experience and you don't want to take those final units, you can wait. You can wait until the January 1, 2027 date and apply under the new rules. That's something that you can do. I think, you're all CPAs, aspiring CPAs, so I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but you're going to want to consider your financial implications of these decisions that you make, right? We know that there's costs to complete those 4 units, but then there's also benefits to getting your license and what that may mean in terms of additional income. So you'll have to weigh those costs and benefits also when you make this decision.
All right, very good. So hopefully that kind of helped you in your thinking, Katie, as you're approaching, and good luck on the rest of those sections. You can do it. All right, Laurel says, I'm just finishing my educational requirements, but have no experience under a CPA yet. I know I want to take the tests, but I obviously need to prepare first. When should I submit my transcripts to make sure all of my classes count and I don't have any surprises? If I submit my transcripts, does that mean I will need to take the test on any type of timeline?
So you don't need to wait to send your transcripts. You can send your transcripts to us, now if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You do want to make sure that when you send your transcripts to us, they already have, all of the courses completed and your degree on there. If that's something that you're waiting to see show up on your transcript, you might want to wait until that's done. Those are pieces of information that we will eventually need, and then you can send your transcripts to us. However, we look at transcripts once you apply to take the exam. So even if you send them to us early, we're just going to store those for you and wait until we get that application. Then once you get approved to sit for the exam, which that will happen once you apply and meet those requirements, then you have 12 months to schedule your exam sections.
Yeah. Go ahead and send them in electronically, please. And there's a page
Please.
on our website. There's the old days, we still have a lot of old transcripts. We're glad those old days are done. So send them electronically. There's a page on the website that tells you how you can do that. Richard says, does my accounting auditing class count for both ethics and accounting education requirements, or does it only count towards one of them?
So your auditing class is going to count for either ethics or for accounting. You're not going to double dip that course and have those same 3 units count in different places. Just, keep that in mind. When we review transcripts, we take the view of what is most beneficial for our applicants. And so we slot those units into the buckets based on what is most beneficial for the applicant in terms of meeting the requirements.
Yeah, our staff is trying to get you there, so they'll shuffle the deck chairs, if you will, to make sure they'll put them in the right places, because we want it to be a yes and not a no. So we'll do what we can. All right, Ananya, I hope am saying your name right. Can international students get a CPA license? How and what are the requirements?
Well, yes, we welcome international students. The requirements, the education, the examination, the experience, all of those requirements are the same. Really, the difference is that for international students who have their education from a foreign university, they need to get those transcripts evaluated by one of our foreign credential evaluation services. You need to use one that we have approved, and that list is on our website.
Yep, good luck. All right, this is one of our professors. Do accounting professors need to follow the exact same path as other candidates to qualify for the CPA exam? Or is there any exception based on academic experience?
So there is no difference in terms of the requirements to sit for the exam. So sitting for the exam would be the same for a professor as well as any student or anyone else maybe coming to us later in life. The difference is the experience requirement. So the board does consider 48 semester units of instruction equivalent to 1 year of experience. So that's where the benefit comes in for a professor of accounting.
Yeah, very good. All right, and we had, I just looked, I don't see a Maribel in the attendees. Someone asked, I want to know if I can be a candidate. So I was going to encourage Maribel to ask us a more specific question. So yes, please, you can be a candidate. So didn't get more information from her. Okay, so those are the ones that we got. Let me access. So at this point, if you have more questions, and there are already a few in here in the Q&A, go ahead and send them in, and we'll continue to rattle off some of these. So the first one I see, is there a resource current students can access to check if their courses count toward the proposed unit requirements? So I'm going to actually share my screen and show you. This is on our website. The good news is that it's going to be a lot easier now, right? Because this is the way it currently is, which, if you know, the 24 units of accounting subjects, 24 units of business related subjects, that's going to stay relatively the same. Those are currently for the exam. Down here is where it gets a little tricky currently, when you have these additional 20 units of accounting study. And look, there's all these different things. At least 6 units has to be here, no more than 14 here. Then you've got your 10 units of ethics. So this is on our website called the tip sheet. So if you're looking to apply under the current requirements, this is a good page. Go under the applicants tab and click on education, and this is under there. Like Michelle and I have been saying, one of the main reasons, well, I don't know if it's the main reason, but another goal in updating these licensure requirements is to make it a lot simpler, because now this 20 and this 10 are gone, and all these little kind of subcategories and all these different, we have to list all these classes. That's basically going away. All it's going to be is 24 units of accounting subjects, 24 units of business related subjects, which, like I said, could also be additional accounting subjects, and then 3 units of accounting ethics. So we're kind of hoping that the days of which, where are my classes going to fit and where all of that, and we know there's some anxiety that always happens because of that, that hopefully, if and when these do become the new rules, that a lot of that will go away and things will be a lot easier on your part. Another resource we have currently on our website is something called a self-assess worksheet that kind of breaks down those buckets, and it's a fillable PDF that you can actually enter in your courses and kind of follow along that way. So that is something that is there for you on the website right now. All right, so I'm going
to add one thing to that, David.
Yeah,
is the other thing that AB 1175, the bill, does is it allows the board to recognize degrees. So if you have a degree in accounting, for example, if that degree is recognized by the board, then you would know that it meets all of the educational requirements. So it's in other words, at least a bachelor's degree, and it requires the completion of the accounting concentration. So that will take some time to roll out, because not only do we need regulations, but we would need the universities to apply and for us to recognize their degree. But eventually the goal is to provide our students, our college students, and our soon-to-be college students with an easier way to know whether or not a degree is going to meet the requirements for examination and licensure.
Yep. All right. The question from Alexis is, there's somewhere where there is a visual breakdown, the difference between the current requirements and the new requirements if the bill gets passed. Now, that's a great question, Alexis, because I've had that exact same idea, and that is actually something that's being worked on right now. In the meantime, I will point you to our webpage, where we have a lot of good information, and there are some visuals there. So just go to cba.ca.gov. And then right on the top, you'll see in our little carousel banner something about AB 1175. Click on that, and it'll take you to the webpage that has a lot of information. But yes, Alexis, that graphic is coming soon, because I agree. We're going to do something like that. Very good. You read my mind. Good minds think alike. All right. Carlos, I believe, says, do the years of general accounting experience need to be consecutive? And can an accounting internship count towards the experience requirements?
Well, that's a great question. So no, it does not need to be consecutive. It does not need to be your experience. You don't need to have at the same firm under the same supervisor. You can submit multiple general experience forms to get to your total number of years that are required. Do internships count? Yes, as long as you can, as long as you have that supervising CPA who can sign off on that experience in your internship program, then yes, it will count. And that means you could count an internship that you're getting units for, both under your unit requirement as well as for your experience requirement. Another option besides internships is volunteer work. There are volunteer opportunities that do exist. And as long as it meets that definition of a supervisor, and that supervisor is a licensed CPA, then those individuals can also sign off on experience.
Good. And there was a mention about the bill itself. If you do want to see the bill, the actual language, we have a link to it from our website. We have all of our, click under the laws and regulations section, and you can see a link to it there. If you want to go through and dig in and get in the weeds and actually read the bill, so you can do that. Diana says, I earned my bachelor's degree outside of the United States. I had my credentials evaluated and submitted my application to sit for the exams. I received an email confirming that I'm allowed to take the exams. However, it did not specify how many credits I have or how many I may be missing in order to qualify for licensing. So that essentially, you'll find that out when you apply for your license, right? We don't go beyond, right now we're making sure you have the bachelor's degree in the 24 accounting, 24 business that you need to sit for the exam. When we go beyond that, when you apply for the license, that's when you'll find out more of that. Anything else to add to that, Michelle?
The only thing I would add is that this individual should contact Mick or whomever, or send in a question to our initial licensing unit. Well, we can't tell you whether or not you meet the requirements for licensing. We should be able to give you information on the total units that that you have. So that information we should be able to give you. Remember I said how we do everything and review things from the best situation for the candidate, right? So sometimes we move units around. Maybe they were in the accounting bucket when you applied for exam because that was the best for you. But we may move that to accounting study when you apply for the license because that's best for you. So it's not as simple as I think individuals may think. So we can't do that extra review, but we should be able to tell you the total number of units. You should have also received a copy of that evaluation from the evaluation service when you paid for it.
All right. So now we have a couple of questions that were submitted originally. We were going to get to them. We were going to get to some others first, but we'll come around to them right now. So Deborah, thank you for chiming in again. So Deborah says, I have my CPA license in Arizona since 2005, right, but have just moved to California. So what is the process for being granted?
Okay, Deborah.
Reciprocity? Yeah.
Yes. I was ready for Deborah's answer. So
Sorry
Deborah,
to put you to the end, Deborah, but here we go.
Yeah, we didn't mean to. If your Arizona license is current, you have an active license in Arizona, because that's a little thing that sometimes people let them go inactive when they move. But it is an active license. It's been active for 4 of the last 10 years. Then you can qualify for reciprocity. If you don't meet that particular requirement, then you're going to need to meet California's examination, education, and experience requirements. Either way, you would apply using our normal licensing application, and you would mark yourself a Type C applicant, which means that you are licensed in another state.
All right, very good. All right, now David, we're going to get to yours as well. So David says, I have 10 years of accounting experience, in municipal government, consistently applying both GAAP and GASB accounting standards in my daily work. However, my experience has not been under the supervision of a licensed CPA, though I strongly believe it satisfies the 12-month work experience requirement. I have applied to take the CPA exam and received confirmation from the CBA that I met those requirements. Given that I'm a well-qualified candidate, does the absence of supervision from a licensed CPA prevent me from obtaining licensure? Considering GASB standards impose even stricter requirements than GAAP and working for a highly regulated and audited governmental agency, I would like clarification on that.
So yes, experience needs to be supervised by a licensed CPA. That CPA needs to have reviewed and evaluated the quality of the applicant's work on a routine and recurring basis. That's not always the applicant's direct supervisor. So we do have individuals that sometimes their direct supervisor is not a licensed CPA, but if they have if their work has been supervised by a licensed CPA that maybe is above their direct supervisor in the organizational chart, that is one way that they can get their experience form signed off. It's also important to remember experience may be gained outside of employment. So you could do a volunteer opportunity that qualifies as experience. Remember, even in those volunteer situations, the work needs to be supervised by a licensed CPA.
All right. We have a question from Sharon. Many students ask me if QuickBook course or a payroll course is counted as an accounting course.
Those sound like courses that may not have been taken at a institution of higher education that is accredited and also degree granting. But if it is, and though they are in the accounting program, then they're going to count in either accounting or accounting study. But we see many of these outside of an institution of higher education.
Yeah, so the units have to be at a, accredited degree granting institute of higher education. Nareg, I believe. Yes, we are recording this meeting. And so we will put it up. We'll probably link to it on, yes, YouTube and our website. Bella says, does the supervisor have to be an active CPA to sign off on the work experience? Yes, definitely they do. And so that's why we always recommend, if you're going into that situation, to let them know in advance that you're planning on doing this. So, they don't happen to go inactive in the middle of your 12 months and not tell you. Yeah. And then at the end, you find out and are disappointed because that has happened. It's very sad stories, but it has to be for those 12 months or under the new rules, 24 months active.
And they can't retire either. They can't place their license in a retired status. And so it needs to be in an active status.
All right, Ricardo, I know many students have used community college courses to complete their accounting coursework. Will they still be accepted?
Yes.
Definitely. All right, so here's a question you can talk to Michelle, because this is something that I'll just let you answer it. I won't set it up. So Dr. Pangabine is asking, so does that supervision requirement mean that only people who work in an accounting firm can get a CPA?
No, it does not. You do not need to work in an accounting firm to get your experience. You can work in industry, you can work in government. The requirement really has to do with the supervision that's being done, not the setting that it is being done in.
Yeah. All right, if I have 120 units and pass the CPA exam with 4 years experience, if the bill passes, when can I qualify to be a CPA?
Well, if you've met those accounting courses, then you can apply January 1, 2027.
Right. Yeah, so that's the only thing we don't know about what you wrote there. Have you met, and we're assuming you said 120 units, but we're assuming that means you have a bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, so then it's that what we think is going to be the 24 units of accounting, 24 business, and 3 of ethics. That would be the only thing. So yeah, 1/1/27. All right, got another one that just came in. I have a question. Good, thank you. I'm currently taking classes for my bachelor's degree in accounting and working in the accounting department. I am planning to apply for the one of the sections reg next year. Would my current position apply for the experience requirement? So I guess it means you're working in the accounting department at your school. Is that what you're saying? Maybe you could give us a little more specifics there.
Right. Again, it's not really about the setting. It's about the supervision and the work that's being done. And so the information on what type of work counts as qualifying for the experience is on the experience form itself. And it is fairly broad.
Yeah, so we'll see if we get more on that. Does your work experience have to be, okay, she says at a company. Okay, so at a company, the accounting department.
Yeah, that doesn't quite give me enough information to answer the question, because you could work in an accounting or budget department and not do the work that would qualify. So it really depends on the work activities that are being done.
But another, and maybe this is part of the answer you're looking for, the experience can happen at any time. There's no timeline. The experience can happen before you pass the exam. It can happen after you pass the exam. There's no, as far as that's concerned, that doesn't matter. So when you gain your experience is not an issue at all. All right, Bella, we have kind of answered this. Does your work experience have to be under one supervisor or just an accumulation of 1 year? Correct, an accumulation is fine. Okay, David has a follow-up. No one in my agency has had a CPA license, but we do have external auditors who are licensed CPAs that audit our work. Would this be an option to satisfy the, he says, indirect supervised experience?
No. But if David wants, David's question is probably a little more in the weeds, and we need to look at the specific search situation. So he's free to email the licensing unit, but there is a prohibition against really having someone for which you are paying services for sign off on a form because of potential conflicts of interest there. So, but again, David may have some additional information that would be useful in answering his question.
I just sent you the email address, David.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Okay. As of now, I think that is all. Do we have any last questions? While I'm waiting maybe on any last questions to come in, I'll just encourage you to follow us on our social media if you haven't already. Maybe you do, and that's how you heard about this, or maybe one of your professors told you, and if so, we thank your professor for doing that. So yeah, definitely follow us, you know, LinkedIn, X, we're on all of them. Facebook, if you still want to go there, but so because there's a lot of moving pieces to this. Like we said, even this week, that date changed, and that's an important piece of information we want to get to you. So please follow us on social, because this is a you know, very active situation. We have another, you know, if you really want to get involved, watch our meetings. The next meeting is coming up on May 15th, and that's when we're going to talk a lot about this, CBA recognized degree, which could kind of be your expressway. Once your degree is granted, for sure you've satisfied the education requirements. Talk a little bit about the certificates and how those could maybe reduce some of the work experience. So that's going to be discussed at the May 15th meeting, right at 9 a.m. So come in there and join us.
Join us virtually. You can even comment if you're joining us by WebEx for our public board meetings.
Yep. All right. Oh, we may have one. Okay, got a couple more. Okay, the follow-up question: when a person works for a non-accounting firm as a bookkeeper without direct supervision of a CPA, does the supervision, it has to be
you have to have that supervision.
That is pretty clear. So you need to find a CPA. Does working on QuickBooks online doing financials satisfy the work experience?
There's really not enough in that one to answer either, because I'm not sure if they're doing that with direct and reoccurring supervision from a CPA. I can share the type of work. I have that in front of me now, so I can share the type of work that
she says it will be. She says it will be under a CPA.
Okay, so let me share this, and you can determine whether or not the work that you are doing fits within this description. You can do any type of service or advice involving the use of accounting, a test, compilation, management, advisory, financial analysis, tax, or consulting skills. So those are the activities that qualify under the general experience requirement. So if that is what you're doing in that online environment, and it is under the supervision of a CPA, like you're in the employ of a firm that is doing this online, then that would qualify. If this is a more of a informal type of service, then that is not going to qualify.
Okay, well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, we hope that helped answer a lot of your questions. We'll do another one of these first Friday in June. So June 6th, we'll keep you up to date with any breaking news, answer more questions as it comes up. So again, I direct you to that webpage on our website, www.cba.ca.gov. Lots of good information there on the AB 1175 page. So, all right. Thank you all. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Happy Friday. Happy weekend.